Then I think parents have to work on getting better TV programming. You know, they should say that they want programs that de-emphasize consumerism and that avoid like violence and lurid sex. And I say, how are you going to do that? Well, first of all, of course, you can regulate what your children see, at least on your TV set. Of course, when they go over to other kids' houses, when they go to college, then what? But we can work, I think, through the companies that support these with programs with commercials. Boycott them. Like in Dayton, Ohio recently, we took up signatures against Lazarus Department Store because they sponsored one of these programs of Roseanne where they were ridiculing young people going to church. Well, we can, his economic boycotts hit them in their pocketbook. That speaks a lot toward improving television programs. Then when parents are asked questions by their children about sex, the parents should move on from just discussion of anatomy to talking about the spiritual, the loving and caring aspects of sex within the context of marriage. And if their children cite examples of some of their peers who've gotten pregnant, had abortions and so on, they can use that as a springboard and say, well, if you want to exercise your sexual rights, responsibility comes with that. And that means that you don't have any right to take the life of a child that you conceive then, or to expect society to support you with welfare. You know, you have to be responsible for, if you want your rights, sexual rights, well then you have to exercise the responsibility to take care of yourself. Of course, the problem is, what about the poor baby? You know, that's where we sink. And so these are some of the things that the parents can say. I know I had a student in my class just this semester, I still have him in there, and he came to me and said that he was living with this girl and that he was afraid that she was pregnant, and she was afraid she was pregnant. And he said he's been praying that she isn't. And he said, I guess the man upstairs isn't listening to me. And I thought, well, have you been, you know, what did Matthew, or chapter 15, you know, verse 19 have to say about it? Have you been listening to what God said? You know, well, they never think about that side of it. When they're over a barrel, then they, you know, they want God to step in. Well, anyhow, we believe in our society that we can control our society by exercising our leadership powers, as in the case of television, and guiding our children. And unless we do so, I think some of the trends that I've mentioned here are going to make our society a very intolerable and painful place to live in. But this would be a good year, I think, 1994, the International Year of the Family, to begin doing some of these things. Have I gone over my time?
We're just about perfect.
Is that right? Unbelievable.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
We'll now have a few minutes for a few questions. Yes, Academician Russell.
Yes, Father Russell Smith. I have a question. It's hard to imagine, of course, a generation after Humanae Vitae, what we've been hit with over this last generation, but it's important to remember that no Christian body ever said that contraception was good until 1930. Mm-hmm. And but you made a very interesting point, and I wonder if you could explain it to me, that the birth rate began to decline from 7 in the early 19th century. This was prior to the church, people believing that contraception was right prior to contraceptives, I would imagine, and certainly legalized abortion. What were the factors that contributed to the decline in the birth rate?
Well, urbanization mainly, I'd say, because we became an urban nation in 1920, and of course that was when 51% of our population lived in so-called urban areas. But I think certainly industrialization and urbanization and technological revolution. Of course, we didn't have contraceptives in our country really until Margaret Sanger started things in the 1920s, really. So the main reason I'd say was a declining need for children. With you know, they became an economic liability with the urban way of life. And I'd say that was probably the main reason. Industrialization, urbanization, which flowed therefrom. And perhaps a secularization of values that comes along with urban life and the technological revolution.